Welcome, everybody, to the Hounds podcast. On this episode, I think y'all will really enjoy this one. This one's going to be amazing for everybody to listen to. I thoroughly enjoyed recording this one. Just being able to sit down with this legend. I'm sure you saw it in the title, but I won't do any introductions. So before we get into this thing, I want to do real quick what we've been doing. We're going to turn inspirational quote for this week. This one, I wanted to find something that was kind of hunting related, and I figured that was a little more par for the course, I guess you could say. And I found this one. I didn't see who it was by. Y'all excuse me, I'm a little under the weather. It says the best thing about hunting and fishing, the old man said, is that you don't have to actually do it to enjoy it. You can go to bed every night thinking about how much fun you had 20 years ago, and it all comes back clear as moonlight. I thought that one was pretty neat. And then the Bible verse for this week is going to be out of Genesis 10:9. He was a mighty hunter before the Lord. That is why it is said, like Nimrod, a mighty hunter before the Lord. Kind of little related to hunting there. But all right, guys, I won't hold y'all up anymore. Want to get straight into this one. I really do think y'all are going to enjoy it, and I hope y'all do. And this one was truly an honor. So, all right, here we go. Y'all enjoy. Welcome, everybody, to the Hounds podcast. This is your home for field trialing and deer dog hunting. It'll be stories and discussions on the world of dog hunting. So let's drop the gate, cast your hounds, and get ready for another episode of the Hounds podcast. The Hounds podcast is proud to partner with Outdoor Dog Supply again for the 2025 season. Outdoor Dog Supply is the leader in online garment sales with their world-class trade-in programs. These guys are not just a business, they're also houndsmen and women too. They test their products out in the field and really put them to the test. Get the latest in garment equipment, stay locked and ready with field trial equipment, collars, leashes, and so much more. Visit their website today at outdoordogsupply.com, and we want to thank Outdoor Dog Supply for their support not only for the podcast, but in the field trials across the country. When you're looking for your next purchase and equipment, keep Outdoor Dog Supply in mind. Now let's get this episode started, guys. Thank y'all so much. Welcome, everybody, to the Hounds podcast. On this episode, I am joined by, and I should have asked you before we even started recording, what is the correct way to say your last name?
It's John Hainer.
Hainer. Okay. I
Yes,
thought
sir.
it was Hainer. And I hear people say Hoehner all the time, and I'm like, I don't think that's right. I thought it was Hainer.
Yes, sir, it's Hainer.
That's what I thought. So, without further ado, this is Mr. Hainer. Everybody in the foxhound world probably knows your name and knows your family. Y'all have had a very rich history in this sport amongst the field trialing world and hound dogs in general. So, it is definitely an honor to have you on. I can't thank you enough.
You're welcome, sir. I appreciate you calling me.
Absolutely. So, for the guys that are listening and may not know who you are, just kind of give us a little, who you are, where you're from, and how long have you been a houndsman?
My name is John Hainer, and I live in Dongola, Illinois. And I guess started fox hunting probably when I was about 6 years old with my dad and my brothers.
Okay.
And probably, I don't know, we've probably been doing that. My dad was in it all his life, and then me and my brothers took right up there after him when we was pretty young.
I gotcha. What kind of, was it always, fox hunting and, I guess, were y'all able to deer hunt up there back then?
Back when we first started, you guys probably ain't that old to remember, but we never had many deer, back in the days when my dad was really good and I was young.
Mm-hmm.
It was more just about red fox running back in.
Gotcha.
We run in the wild and there wasn't no fox pens and that kind of thing. And I mean, my dad always liked a real fast foxhound, and he was very competitive. He never went to a lot of hunts.
Mm-hmm.
Because he wasn't able to. He milked a bunch of cows, but he always kept some good dogs.
I gotcha. So what was his how do I word this? What made him gravitate towards the red fox running? I know coon hunting's really popular up there, and what made him go more towards the. And then you may not be able to answer that question, but what do you think made him go more towards the red fox running versus a coon dog?
Well, he had both. But
Okay.
he just, I don't know, Dad. He had some buddies that lived there close to us, and I mean they're all dead and gone too now.
Mm-hmm.
But they had hounds and had dogs, and competed with, and I mean it was back then. It was kind of like it is now, other than you'd all just bring your best dog and build a fire on a Friday night, and them foxes, they'd run all night, and you could sit there in one spot, and they'd come and go, and it was all about who had the fastest dog and lasted the longest of them guys.
That's right. Back when it was just for bragging rights.
Yep.
Sometimes I kind of wish those days were still a thing.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
So when did y'all kind of get started into the competition side?
Well, my dad, like I said, at one time he had like 4 or 5 stud dogs in the book. And
Okay.
me and my brother thought we was going to be professional baseball players. And my brother dropped out a little quicker than I did at that. I really didn't get serious in the fox hunting world. We had, like I said, I had 2 brothers and my dad, and then some local people. And I mean, I just love competition.
Okay.
And it was like when we was playing ball. I'd try to do the best I could do at anything I ever did. And, my brother, he is already running dogs in and doing a little competition running and things. And I told him, I said, now, whenever I stop this ball playing, I said, I'm going to get serious at that fox hunt. And he just laughed, But,
right.
But anyway, I was probably 20, 21 before I really started. And back then I didn't own myself, but I bought one old female from my dad.
Mm-hmm.
I bought her and the 5 pups out of her, and that's one of them that I won the All-American with in 1983, one of them pups.
I was wondering about what year this was starting. Yep.
That was 1983, Hoehner's Checker H.
And the first one you ever attended?
Yep, first one I ever went to. Me and my brother, we took 4 dogs. He had the little jip called Hoehner's Paleface, and a dog he called Saturday Night Special, and I took Checker and Duke, and it was down there between Milton and Munson, Florida in the wild. And we never had tracking collars or nothing, just a little old pickup truck, and of course we never had no money either, but we roughed it. But we did run the crap out of our dogs, and we kept some good dogs. I mean, to us,
Right. That was the days of not even knowing how you're going to get back. You just went down there on a hope and a prayer.
Yeah. Well, like I say, we took a little old Nissan truck and had a dog box built over the top of it, and took sleeping bags, and everybody went to town. We rolled them bags out and slept on the box.
And we call that the good old days, right?
Yeah. But back then, you knew your dogs. It wasn't like get a Garmin out and look and see which way they went.
Right.
Everybody listening, you knew their mouths and that kind of thing.
Yep.
To me, it was more of a sport than now. It's a lot of things has changed, but
that's right.
I guess some for the best, and maybe not some for the best. But
yeah, you can't have advancements without hurting something in the process, I think.
That's right.
So that was have you been Illinois, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Have y'all been up there your whole life?
Yep.
Okay.
I moved to this place right here when I was 21 years old, and I ain't never left.
Wow.
Yep.
Man, that was a pretty good hike to go down to Florida for that first time.
Yeah. I think it was about 700 mile or something like that. And that's just 2 country boys. We hadn't either one been very far out of town, but the time we got back, I think I talked to you one time there. I told you me and my brother was passing every nickel we had. I think we had $3 between us at the last gas station we put in that little truck to get home, and we hoped we made it home.
Now talk about rubbing 2 nickels together.
Yes, sir. But that's kind of the way we've been. I mean, we'd give our last dime for a good dog. I
love that.
We got it in our blood, and when we done that, it was, whatever we had to do to sacrifice other than our family, we'd about do to get a dog.
I get it.
Yes,
So
sir.
going down there, I mean, that was that y'all's first big field trial then that y'all had gone to?
Yeah, my brother, I don't know, like I said, he started a little earlier,
Right.
and he run around with some other boys there that's dead and gone too now.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, he might have went to one or two, but as far as us winning one, I don't think we'd ever. That's the first big one I'd ever went to. I mean, I went to some of these local hunts with my dad and them when I was a kid, but
Right.
like I said, I wasn't really that serious about it. But
Yeah.
I mean,
I was kind of wondering if you knew what you were getting yourself into driving 700 miles down there for that big of a hunt.
Not really. Me and him would just aggravate one another. Of course, that's the way we was playing ball or anything else, And we got down there, and I think Freddie Walker was the secretary back then. And,
Mm-hmm.
We didn't know nobody, me and my brother, because we was young, and and we was kind of cocky, I guess, back in them days for two little kids that never been nowhere.
Right.
And all Freddie and them, we went in to enter our dogs, and all he could talk about was Lewis Garner. Which I know Lewis because I knew him later on. I knew he's a heck of a dog man, But
right.
I didn't pay. I told my brother, I said, Lewis Garner. I said, I ain't never heard of him. He said, no. He said, you probably wouldn't have, and we didn't. And then, I don't know, we entered our dogs, and Freddie said he'd run 8 and said he's probably going to dominate this one. I poked my brother with my elbow on the way out. I said, he ain't never heard of the Hoehner boys, I bet.
No.
my brother says, no, and he probably won't when we leave here. I said, you never know.
And I bet he didn't forget him now neither.
No, I bet Lewis, I know he kept up with us after that, and a lot of them other fellas. There's some good hunters back then. And like I said, people had good dogs. It just a lot different than it is now, Most of them didn't have no collars, and they liked good mouths, and of course they liked fast dogs back in,
Right. Yeah. And I'd like to have been a fly on the wall when they started calling y'all's name out.
Yeah.
I bet the faces were just shocked on that one.
Yep. Well, what they done down there at that particular All-American, and, I had never been no big hunt, so I didn't know how they really done it. But instead of just calling it out, they called the top 5 people up there. They called like me and my brother, and a boy right there local had a dog that done real good.
Right.
Can't recall his name, but you'd know it. And he mainly did field trial right there in Florida. But anyway, they called us top 5 up there and tried to make you sweat a little bit and this kind of thing and that, And of course, everybody knew. And Lewis might have been one of them 5. I can't remember.
Right.
But anyway, we got up there, and then it got down there to the winner. And my brother, he got 3rd. And then the local boy was between me and him, and then they called him out, so everybody knew that Jip had won it. But
daggone. Man, that's wild. Going down there, never been. One of the biggest hunts in the country. Going to go down there and finish 1st and 3rd.
Yes, sir. Well, we won all 4 classes, but somehow or another that 2nd place dog got in there somehow, and I don't remember what. But
snuck in on you a little ways.
Yeah. And my brother, I'm not going to lie about it, that little pale-faced Jip, which was the mother of a action cat, she wasn't about 18 inches tall.
Oh, wow.
And she had dominated that hunt the first 3 days.
Yeah.
But that little heifer jumped a deer.
Oh,
and that last day, she left the country.
I got on out of there.
Yep, that Jip of mine just run the fire out of them red-sided gray foxes. And it was a bad smelling day, and Checker was a good, strong Jip. Just get stronger it went, and had an outstanding nose,
Right.
And it was kind of a rough day, but it was perfect for her.
Now, back in the days before the Garmin, that kind of hunt, would you follow the dogs, or were y'all pretty well isolated to staying at the campgrounds during the hunt?
When we first started, like with my dad, we run mostly foxes, and we never followed the dog. Well, you didn't have to. He'd buy a couple dozen red fox, and we'd turn them loose because he always tried to feed them and take care of them, kind of like dogs. Yeah. And we could almost just send the dogs right there and build a fire. And you never had no deer or coyote, so you could just sit there and listen. Didn't have to drive nowhere.
Right.
Once you found that spot. But then later on, me and my brother got coyotes going on in these field trials, and then there wasn't no pens. Of course, we wouldn't have had money to go to one anyway. We'd had to just we run in the wild all the time, just all of us again one another, and try to
Right.
outrun one another is what
Right.
got us. And yeah, them dogs in the wild, we'd stay with them. We got the CBs and
Yeah.
all
right.
that kind of thing. And I remember the tracking collars. First time I've ever been around them was old Wayne Perry that had Callaway White Cloud.
Okay.
He come up here to this Osmond hunt that's one of the oldest hunts in the world I'm going to next week. And
Right.
he had them dogs there, him and his wife, and his boy, I think, was with him, or maybe girl, I don't remember which. But anyway, we was all kind of young, cocky people, and them dogs of his, they turned loose, and they'd come by there, and they had them antennas, and we'd call them Martian dogs. Made fun of them, By the end of the day there, we was out driving around all night, and by noon, he'd caught his dogs and was back at the room. Well, we made fun of him just a little bit, but we come find out he is way smarter than we was.
I was gonna say he had a little leg up on y'all.
Yes, sir. That was the first tracking collars I'd ever heard tell of.
Man, I tell you, me and my dad's still that old school at heart kind of guy. He does not run when we deer hunt. He still doesn't run tracking collars on his dogs.
Yeah,
he's just he knows where they are. He listens to them. That's how he's going to keep them. That's how he's going to keep track of them. And if they don't catch them, they know how to home. And
yes, sir. The tracking collars are a good thing, but I think it's hurt the hunter and the dog to some respect.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. I agree. I think it's made it. What's the best way to word it? The new people getting in don't have to work for it. I guess it's, you know what I mean? I guess if that makes any sense. Not that they don't have to work for it. It's they don't have to learn their dogs.
Right. To me, they just don't have the desire for the dog like we did when we was younger.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just like Checker, I bought her and her whole litter for $150.
Mm-hmm.
And what that means to you when you raise one up and then you compete to that level,
right? Right.
And the confirmation and all that. And the good mouths, I know a lot of these young hunters, and I'm not saying in a bad way, because there's a lot of them that's real competitors.
Right.
But 90% of them that I've been around, you ask them what kind of mouth their dog's got, and they don't even know. But they know he'll place in a field trial, and
right.
That's some of the old hunters. If a dog didn't come home and have a good mouth, they didn't own them long.
That's right. That's right. The Hounds Tales podcast would like to take a minute and talk about our friends over at Cinjun Lights. When pleasure running at night or judging those nighttime field trials, you can put your trust in Cinjun Lights. With the economical Cajun Bayou for the every now and then light user, the Cajun Micro for the nighttime feeds and around the house times, then the top level Cajun Blinder for those hardcore crossing getters at night. The Cinjun Lights are headlamp style light that free up your hands for voice recorders or your GPS. They offer flood style lights in red, amber, and a white walking light. Then the top of the line 4-level main beam light. If you're having a hard time catching crossings at night, give the Cajun Light a try. And the red and amber setting to catch the game without distracting them, and with the easy flick of a switch, go back to your main beam light to catch your hounds in action and get those numbers. Visit their website today at CajunLights.com, and at the checkout, make sure you fill out the survey after your purchase and select Hounds Tales Podcast to receive 5% off your next purchase with Cinjun Lights. Now, let's get back to the episode. It always cracks me up at a field trial. These people will be like, there's 350 dogs in the pen just absolutely screaming. They hear one dog. Yeah, that's my dog. That's my dog. Yep. Like, most of the people, so there's a few now. There's a few distinct dogs that that you can definitely tell out. But you got just a regular old chop mouth dog, and they're like, "Oh yeah, that's mine." Man, there's probably 150 other chop mouth dogs in there that sound just like that.
And I'm pretty good at that. But my dad and my brother is the best two I'd ever been around. And my daddy always told me, he said they may bark alike, but he said they don't give it alike. And he said every dog will give a different tone, and he may either bark faster or slower and higher and that kind of thing.
That's right.
If you really just sit there and don't look at the garment and just listen to what you got loose,
yep,
you'll figure out.
You'll figure it out.
I mean, yep, you'll learn a lot of it.
That's right. That's right. Even when I pleasure run, I'll keep it by my hip, but I like having that. I don't like having that Garmin right in front of my face. I want to follow the big pack, and when they coming across the road, that's how I want to learn my dog when they come across like that. That's to me, that's the best way to learn what you're really running, even in the wire. Even I don't care what size pin it is. If you follow that big pack, that the big pack's where your scores are going to be coming from. And if he's out there controlling that big pack, you're going to learn who's going to be the one out front most of the time.
That's
and then
right.
You'll learn them barks too.
Yep. Yeah, if you don't know their mouth, I mean, you can look at that Garmin, but if he's in there a half a mile or a mile,
That's right.
You don't know what dog's doing what. I kind of like to know which one's making the race.
Mm-hmm.
Them ones that's robbing it, everybody's got some of them, but I kind of like them ones that make you a race and then just keep it going.
Yes,
that's
sir.
kind of I like.
Yep, that's right. That's right. So, when did your dad get started into? I mean, you said he kind of dabbled into it. So who was some other people that kind of influenced your steps into the competition hound world?
Probably mainly just my dad and my brothers.
I got you.
I mean, I didn't know anybody, outside of that because, like I said, I was either coaching ball or playing ball, and then I got serious with them dogs, and I mean, I didn't know anybody in the fox hunting world, other than, well, we didn't ever leave the state much, and we just got that wild hair about going to that All-American. My brother got me started on that, and then, I don't know, and then I guess after I done that kind of just ruined me. Then it was kind of like pouring gas on a fire. I was ready to explode.
Yeah, I was going to say that was hook, line, and sinker on that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Well, I've said it a million times on this podcast. I swear, it's like the sport knows when somebody's coming into it and needs that little hitch in their giddy up for that first hunt.
Yes,
you don't know how many people I hear from. It's like, yeah, on my first hunt, I went and placed a dog, or my first hunt, I won a hunt, and it's like, man, it's like the sport knows how to hook you.
Yeah, but especially like that All-American. I mean, I've been there. I probably haven't been to the All-American but 7 times in my life, and I've won it 3.
No kidding.
And I mean, it's been good to me. But there's a lot of people. I've sold dogs at hunts. People I'll have some they've made the cut, but to me, they don't have a chance to win it. But some of them older fellers, they just never had a dog make the cut.
Right.
So, I mean, it's an honor to win, but
yeah.
And I guess a lot of people love to do it. And, I mean, it'll get to be an addiction, I can tell you that.
It's a drug with no cure, that's for sure.
That ain't no lie. I'm trying quitting, but I ain't smart enough to know how. I don't guess.
I don't think we'll ever figure it out.
No, sir.
So, you said most of your stuff was on the outside. Well, almost everything y'all did from the start was on the outside, correct?
Yes, sir. Yes.
So when did that transition start happening into the pens?
About the time Action Cat and them, let's see, I didn't have the pen in '83, but right around then, I'd say it wasn't long after that I won that hunt, I got to thinking pretty serious about it. And about that time, there was some guys up north and over in Missouri that built the first pens around here.
Mm-hmm.
And then I built one right here at my house that I still got.
I got you. But
that's about in that area, and I don't know, 85, I'd say, somewhere around then, 1985.
Wow. So y'all been doing it for quite a few years then in the pens then?
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
How big is that pen?
My pen's 210 acres, and then my brother moved. We actually lived at Marissa, Illinois. That's about 100 miles north of here.
Okay.
And when I was a junior in high school, my dad bought a big dairy farm down here, and we moved down here, and it was more in the country,
Mm-hmm.
And my brother, then he moved down later and bought a farm 12 miles north of me, and then me and him went into partners on that. That was when we was partners, and I paid for the wire, and he put the wire up, and we had that pen up there, and it's 210 acres also.
Nice.
But, yeah, we had 2 pens going in between us, and, yeah, we got plumb serious about it then.
Hey, I see. y'all really did take it to heart.
Yes, sir.
Now, are y'all able to have fox and coyotes in the pens up there, or is it just a fox thing?
No, it's legal. I mean, I guess about 5 years ago, maybe they was trying to maybe shut them down and this kind of thing, and
Right.
they didn't. Nobody, the government or nobody really wanted to shut them down. It was just some people. You know how that goes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then they got the man from Springfield, which is our state up here, the capital.
Right.
He called me and another pen owner and told us, that we need to get together, and we did. And I mean, they made it a law, and we buy a permit every year, and you got to get that, and they come and inspect the pen and the game and that kind of thing. But no, we ain't had no problem as far as that. Everybody's agreeable to everything, and
Good.
It's rolling good so far.
Awesome. I don't get to speak. I don't get to talk to a lot of people from up y'all's way.
Right. Right.
How many pins are up there?
In the state of Illinois, now I'm not talking. I think there's 4 or 5 little, like you might say, puppy 80-acre pens and that
right.
kind of thing. But I think really there ain't but one that they have field trials in, and that's up there at Carl Stevens' pen at Albany, Illinois.
Yeah. Okay. I got you.
But I think there's 4 or 5, maybe 6 pens. Kind of like the size of mine or a little smaller.
Okay, I got you.
In the whole state that I know of.
Yeah, I was gonna say I didn't think it was too many up that way.
No. Well, the terrain up here is, it's kind of hard because a lot of open ground and farm ground. If it's real good ground, these farmers, of course, going to be farming it.
Right.
So, and as far as getting 400 or 500 acres that's rough enough that you can get that don't have a river or a creek or on a hill, it's kind of hard to do.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I went to college in Ohio, so it's not exactly the same, but I get the rough idea of how it is up that that direction. And
right.
Yeah,
right.
I could understand that finding that kind of terrain and that kind of land, like you said, with the farmers being so adamant about it.
Right.
Now, do y'all get a lot of outside field trials up there still, or is there outside fox running?
They're having the Hillsboro, and this Osmond hunt used to be in the wild, but they've had so much trouble that they just moved it back to the pen here about 3 years ago.
Gotcha.
They've got the Hillsboro hunt, and I don't know. I talked to some boy that was coming up here from out y'all's way, and he said he called that woman and said they had 500 numbers out. And that's been as a good family-oriented hunt as you'll ever want to go to. I mean, they just do like the old-time hunts you used to go to. If you ever get a chance and go to one, that'd be a good one to go to.
Yeah, I might have to make my way up that way.
Good people, and I mean, it's a trophy and bag of feed and cakewalks and kid games.
Lord, cakewalks.
Back where it used to be when we grew up.
Yeah, I was gonna say you ain't heard. I ain't heard of a cakewalk in a good little while.
Well, they'll have them up there, and then the women will all get together, and they'll have games for them kids to play. It's a real nice hunt to go to.
Wow, yeah, I'm gonna have to come up there for that one.
Yes, sir.
I may have to look into that one for the next year or two. Bring my boy up there.
Well, he'll have fun.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, if not, he'll make fun somehow. Yeah. I promise you that.
I'll promise you, them women won't let him go home hungry. He'll have something to do besides the dogs, even.
Right. Yeah, I made the mistake of telling him I was going to run dogs this morning while he was home with his mama, and he's like, I want to see the dogs in the box when you get done. I said, all right. I was like, we'll see what's going on, and I ended up getting busy and ended up feeding them up and putting them back in the lots, and I got to the house, and he looked at me, he looked at the truck, he said, where are the dogs, Daddy? I'm like, oh, crap, I got to turn around and go back. He was not happy I did not bring them dogs back in that dog box.
I've done that before. Go to a field trial 300 miles from home. You get all the dogs, you thinking you got them all, and you ain't paying no attention. Maybe you put one over somewhere else because you didn't get along with the other ones. Get home and unload them, and you're missing a dog.
Woo.
That's even worse.
Yeah, I might be calling back to see if somebody wants to buy that one.
Yeah.
So you're real cheap and local pickup only.
That's right. That's right.
So, when y'all started getting into those pens, did y'all have to adjust your breeding program, or was the dogs did the dogs y'all running were the dogs you were running adjust to the pens well? Did they make that transition? We're going to take a quick second and pause this episode and talk about our partners over at Elite Nutrition. Our hounds, they're athletes, guys. They give us their all each and every time that they're casted. Elite Nutrition offers an all-natural products to give your dogs the natural benefits they deserve. From the canine remove and all-natural wormer to the Electro Boost paste for an electrolyte replenishment, body fluid balance, and blood flow improvement. They also have products like Active Dog Powder for recovery and joint muscle support, Essential Dog Powder for daily vitamins and minerals, probiotics, prebiotics, and enzymes, and then the canine lactate powder for nursing dogs to help with milk supply. There are tons of other products for y'all to check out at CajunLights.com. Then click on the Elite Nutrition section to explore. When you go check out, only at CajunLights.com, use the code HTElite10 to receive 10% off your Elite Nutrition products. Again, that's HTELITE, the number 10, to receive 10% off Elite Nutrition products only via CajunLights.com. I've been using their products over the past couple months, and I could not be happier with the results. See for yourself today, and we want to thank Elite Nutrition for taking a step forward into this field trial sport. Now, let's get back to the episode, guys.
Mainly our dogs back then, I don't know, like I told you before, me and my brother and my old daddy too, we never like to get beat at nothing. So
Right.
Our dogs that we had in the wild, in what I call piddlers, we'd try to breed and raise the fastest dog we could raise,
Right.
Because we caught a lot of coyotes in the wild. We never did shoot one. We just breed them dogs to where they could run them and
catch dogs.
Yep. And you take them kind of dogs, that's still about basically what it is in these pens. That type of dog, it's not the hunting trailer piddlers, I call them. I mean, they're a more master style dogs, what we always raised to start with.
Gotcha. I got you.
But they made the transaction pretty good,
Good. That's awesome. That's one of the things I hear about a lot of the guys, in that generation, going from where it was all outside hunts to when these pens started, quote unquote, started taking over. Most of these guys talk about having to really kind of change up how they were breeding and what they were looking for in the dog. And I was just, I always like to hear how that kind of rolls over from time to time.
Well, old Action Cat, like I said, and I guess you might know what he's done or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
He helped Mr. David pretty well.
Yep.
And I think David was a good hunter and smart about a dog, and I think he kind of knew about that time with his dogs that maybe he needed to get a little more speed in them.
Right.
Or, he had real good-looking, hard-going dogs, but old Cat and them, that's kind of the same breeding we was running back then. And when we come to the pen, I mean, them dogs went ahead and done good in the pens in that breeding too.
Right. Now, just for everybody not listening, David, which David are you talking about?
David Helms.
That's what I thought. Yep. That's
he ended up a fella. Well, me and Scott, that's my brother. We was partners, and I went and got old Spike. That was Action Cat's daddy. And
okay.
He sent the money with me over there, and we bought him off of Roscoe Walker out in Missouri. And me and my wife went over there to get him one night. And I got over there, and I called my brother, and I mean, he looked like death warmed over. I said, Scott, $600 is a lot of money to give for this dog. I said, this dog looks like he's going to be lucky to live. I said, what do you want to do? He said, well, you're there. He said, get him. And that was old Roughwood Spike. That was Action Cat's daddy.
Okay.
And then we bred him the old pale face, but that's what we paid for old Spike was $600.
Wow.
Yep.
And that started, and man, of course.
That particular cross right there was one of the best that's ever been, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
We'd run them dogs in a pen, and I can tell you this: people would go broke trying to buy dogs to outrun them in that pen. And Action Cat had a couple sisters. Had a sister called Poison.
Okay.
And I can promise you, if a man had her around here for these 1 days, you wouldn't need no job.
No kidding.
I mean, she'd make it rough on him and everybody, for about 4 or 5 hours. And then about that time, old Action Cat would take over, and then till daylight, it was all over. And they all had them good, clear, tender mouths, and
yeah.
Good stock dogs.
Yeah. So what was tell me a little bit about Action Cat. I kind of want to hear some of the story behind Action Cat of what all that dog accomplished. And that seems to be. I'd say that one was probably a big lead into y'all's career as far as a field trial. Correct?
Right. Well, like I said, his mama was Little Paleface, and she wasn't but 18 inches tall, and I seen her outrun she'd just run game. She'd get behind game, and you'd be running in the wild at that time.
Right.
And she was one of them. She knew when she started getting behind it, she'd shut up, and the next time you'd hear her, she'd be in there a quarter. And, I mean, dogs just couldn't stay with her. And then we bred her to that little Spike dog, and he really was just an outstanding good deer dog, what he was.
Okay.
I mean, that old boy run in the wild, and Roscoe was a good hunter and kept good dogs, but now he would run the fire out of them, and he wanted something with a good mouth. And that little old dog and Jip both had them good mouths, and my brother, we bred them two together, and all them mates in that litter, every one of them had them clear tenor mouths. And old Action Cat, we was running some in the wild. My brother actually got kind of mad at him because, we'd go over there and I'd drag him a little bit because that dog was just naturally born deer proof. He wouldn't run a deer lick.
No kidding.
And we was over there at a field trial, and I remember we cast him. Of course, we'd been to them pens, and everybody knew what happened to you in a pen with him.
Right.
But anyway, we run them over there, and them dogs, they took off up through there. We casted 300 dogs probably, and it wasn't 30 minutes here. He come back up that road and jumped up on my brother's dog box. And, we was giving him all kind of heck. Of course, he was getting mad, and finally the dog went on down there and jumped a coyote, and then we was kind of embarrassed. But for a while, it was pretty good. But that dog right there, people don't know what to look at in dogs. That dog, he could run all night and stand flat-footed and jump up on top of the dog box. I'm not talking about on a tailgate. If you didn't open the tailgate, he could jump straight up on the box.
Good gosh.
And that's where a lot of dogs is lacking nowadays. People just don't understand, the conformation and stuff you got to have. He was just, and these dogs are too, they're athletes.
Right.
And if you don't have something to work with, I mean, that's where you get behind. They don't take running. But that dog right there, and I'm sure he passed it on to a lot of his pups and stuff, which we actually, my dad, he kind of was a farmer, and he never paid a lot for a dog. 500 to 1,000 would have been tops,
Right.
And old Action Cat was getting quite a name for himself, and they had some guys come up here and listen to him run.
Right.
And they offered my brother $5,000 for him.
Oh, man.
Of course, my brother, he didn't want to sell him. My dad told him, he said, "Son," said, "you're crazy." Said, "You better let that dog go." Of course, my dad would sell one for $50. It didn't matter.
Right.
But me and my brother didn't want to get rid of him because we knew what he was. But anyway, he got his wife in a bad way or whatever. I don't know what all happened, but anyway, he needed some money.
Yeah.
And he called them old boys back, and actually the guy that come and bought him got the dog and wrote him a bad check.
Oh,
and
no.
Mr. David was listening to that dog run down there at some pens that he was in. And that's what I said. You got to give Mr. David Helms credit. He was a smart enough man to know that dog's mouth, which he had an outstanding one, and he picked him out there in them dogs. And then he called, because I told my brother, I said, "Shoot," I said, "if you ain't going to get the money, let's go get the dog back."
Right, daggone right.
So in the meantime, David calls, and he wanted to buy that dog, wanted to know if that money was good. If he'd send that money, could he buy that dog? My brother let him have him, and that's how he got a Action Cat.
No kidding.
But we had a lot of fun with them dogs before that. Of course, there wasn't no money hunts and that kind of thing. It was just grudge matches, but that was worth more than all the money, them grudge matches.
That's right. Yeah, the pride and the prestige behind those.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's what I mean. I still like that. A lot of people don't, but I mean, that's the part I like. I like a good mouth, and I want one to be able to run and take running. And a lot of people just don't know the difference, I guess. But I'm kind of old school, I guess you'd say.
That's right. That's right. So, what was Action Cat's kind of record with y'all? What were y'all able to accomplish with him?
Well, as far as us running him, I mean, he won some of them puppy hunts and that kind of thing when they was younger and that. And we won some derby hunts. But I mean,
Right.
he sold that dog before he got. I mean, I think Action Cat wasn't 2 years old when he sold him.
No kidding. So he
But
was
now
still
he
real
got
young.
them bitches mates to him, Poison and Poco and them, and
Right.
then he made that cross again, and he had some more. The mates to him and all done good too. But we didn't get to go to a lot of field trials to promote one like David and them did down there, you know.
Gotcha. One of them situations where you hated to see him go, but the dog almost like you said, if y'all weren't gonna be able to make it enough, the dog almost deserved to be going where
That's right.
it was going to be promoted correctly.
Well, up here where we was running him, the dog wasn't getting the credit that he needed. You know, he's probably
Right.
one of the best that there's ever been. But up here in this pasture fields out here and in these little pens ours with nobody that is anybody running against him,
Right.
you
Right.
know, they'd have never known the dog. But when he got him, he run him down there in some of them big hunts like the International and won it. And he won some more hunts with him. I don't know if it was Western Open or Western Derby or
Right.
one of them hunts. David won 2 or 3 hunts with him before he put him up and just kept breeding him.
Now, were y'all able to get anything back off of him?
Yeah. Yeah.
Gotcha. What was some of the ones you got off of him?
I knew you was going to ask me that. It's been too long for me to tell you. My brother had a lot of them, and he'd call them all something cat, and he had so many of them, it's hard to remember.
I got you. Yeah, Did it look like he threw pretty well then? Kind of passed along those traits?
Oh, yeah. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever heard of Tiny Cat. That's that
Yep.
white Jip that David Helms had.
Yep.
That's probably wasn't as tough as I like. She wasn't like her daddy on that part.
Right.
But I've seen that thing school as many a dogs as you'd ever want to watch run. If she finished, I've seen her in packs down there at Picayune. I've seen packs come through there, and they'd be 50 and 75 dogs, and she'd be 100 yards ahead of them dogs, that good mouth, and just tell them, come on.
Just leading it.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yep.
I like it. Well, y'all have had a lot of successful hounds, that's for sure. I kind of want to touch on some of the, I guess you could say more popular ones. And obviously, if you got any that maybe I failed to bring up, I would definitely like to hear some stories about them. But I'd say probably one of your biggest ones, probably one of y'all's biggest ones, is probably Geronimo.
Yes, sir.
I'd love to hear some of his background and kind of his story behind, what that cross was and how his upbringing was.
Well, he actually belonged to my brother, but that was a good dog. He is kind of like Cat and them. I think he won the Southern Illinois or the Illinois State, one of them 3 years in a row.
Mm-hmm.
But, he is a big, white, good-looking dog. And, he is just a nice dog.
Yeah, I had actually found it. Found a picture. It was an old post. I think it was on y'all's kennel page. He was a 3-time Illinois State champion. Won the speed and drive all 3 times, and was in a 4th time and was 3rd HGA. Second in these, Southern Illinois. He was a. No, I'm sorry. 3rd HGA once, and he was 2nd speed and drive in that hunt in the Illinois State.
Right.
So the Southern Illinois, he was the bench and dual champion. 4th at the Masters in Pamlico, South Carolina. Indiana State, 3rd place, and won the speed and drive. Southern Star in Mississippi, 3rd HGA, 2nd speed and drive. Looks like Missouri State, 6th HGA, 5th speed and drive. That is a record right there.
I don't think he run him in many hunts that he is at. He is kind of like old Sliding Springer. If he took him, he got his name called. That was a heck of a dog.
Right. Now, what was the cross?
I knew you was going to ask me that. I know. Heck, I can't hardly remember my own name.
Tickle the old brain there.
Yeah. Well, I'll have to remember that one.
Yeah.
Let's see. Geronimo was out of Shy Fly, wasn't he? Hoehner's Fly.
I think that's
and
right.
I'm not sure that he wasn't out of the.
I thought I had looked it up too.
Might have been that Hillbred dog that what the crap was his? What was his daddy's name? Lordy.
Let's see. Hang on, I might have you right here.
I'm sure his
Yeah,
mama was
Hainer
fly.
Shy Fly. Yep, and Ducati's Joby. Is that right?
Yep, Ducote's Joby. That's it.
Jacody's. Yep.
Yep.
Yep. There
What
you
was
go.
Joby out of? He go back to Sticker? Is that what he is out of?
Yep.
Yep.
Maggie Sticker, and he's
Yep.
High Fly Rainbow or High Fi Rainbow.
Yep.
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 Yep. Then that
That
goes
was
Maggie.
the dog. My brother actually bought that dog off of Steve Ducote and brung him up here, and that was a nice dog too.
Okay.
And
I
then he
gotcha.
made that cross, and that little fly Jip, his mama was a heck of a Jip, but she was just like he said, fly. She was shy. If you ever got her casted, now she'd outrun you, but sometimes she'd get a little wild on you.
Right. Well, that Sticker dog had the probably the best producing dog of all time, old Pinedale Clown B.
Yep.
You know.
Yes, sir. That was another nice dog that you brung that up. My brother had a Jip called Hot Pants,
Okay.
and she was out of the Poco Jip that was a litter mate to Action Cat.
Okay.
And she was almost like our Action Cat for as a female, and we was kind of getting down on dogs, not really being, we showed up one time and won, the next time we didn't. We was kind of getting into that didn't part.
Right.
So me and my brother got our heads together, and old Robbie was doing good with old Clown, and I told him, I said, we need to just take old Hot Pants down there and breed her to old Pinedale Clown. And of course she was all white, and my brother, he is all against it for a while, I told him, I said, well, I'll tell you what, I'll take her down there and pay the stud fee, and we'll split the pups.
There you go.
So he is all on that. And
Right.
we made that cross, and the dog I won the All-American with in 2001 was Hoehner Superman, and that's what that cross is.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's. I wish I was around in those times to see some of those kind of dogs run. I always heard, a lot of good stories about a lot of those breedings back then. The Clown Bee and all those dogs. Man, God, I wish I could have seen those dogs.
There's nice dogs.
All right, guys, one last interruption real quick on this episode. Want to take a second and give a big shout out to our friends at Lowin Outfitters. Our apparel for not only the podcast but for the pin series for this year is up and live. If you visit lowinoutfitters.com, you can purchase your Houndstales podcast apparel. There'll be hats and t-shirts. And then if you're a part of the pin series or want to just help out with the series and go order some shirts, don't forget you can get those shirts too. It can be shipped directly to your door. Then if you're also looking for custom apparel for your kennel or just a dog in general, whatever you want, check their whole website out. There's plenty of stuff that they offer with great products. Thoroughly impressed with everything that I've gotten from them. I still have a hoodie that when I first got into this sport, I got, this has been 3 or 4 years ago now, and it has not lost any life in it yet. So be sure to check these guys out, lowinoutfitters.com, and thank y'all. I want to thank them for their partnership, and thank y'all for listening, guys. All right, let's get back to the episode.
Old Clown was a good dog himself. I don't know about his litter mates. I don't think he had many litter mates, but when I won the All-American there in 01 with him, Robbie actually run Clown, and he was 9 years old, and I think the dog was like 6th or something the first day in speed and drive.
Oh, wow.
The second day he come up and got scratched, but he said he'd won a hunt that year, and that's why he had a free entry fee. He said it didn't cost me nothing.
Yeah.
So he took him down there to Sand Sifter and run him, and he was a nice dog now.
No.
Produced a lot. Of course, he bred a lot,
Right.
There's so many stud dogs out there now.
I know it.
The breeding, there's so many, a dog don't get bred like a Clown did.
Yeah.
Ain't no telling how many he breds,
Well,
but he was good to us.
yeah, that's for sure. So, Geronimo, what was the point where he stuck out to y'all where it was like, all right, this is going to be the one?
You go up there that hill we called the mountain up there where my brother lived. And he, like I said, he had one of them good mouths, and if you went up there and watched him run or listen, it was pretty obvious. And when you go to a hunt, a dog like that, I mean, him, and I think I've done the same thing with old Slide. He was the Indiana State Speed and Drive winner 3 years in a row and won that hunt 3 years in a row. But you don't hardly hear tell of dogs that do that anymore,
No.
And to do 3 years in a row again, say 150, 200 different dogs from all over the world, that says something right there
That's a
about them
lot.
dogs.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So it
But
sounds like, I hear a lot of people talk about it. I'm a firm believer in it. It sounds like y'all are pretty blessed with dogs that y'all could use as measuring sticks. I'm sure y'all kind of have that mentality of, okay, this dog's been really good, so you're going to have to either be with that dog or beating that dog to keep going. That's kind of,
right.
I feel like that's just judging by the way you're talking, kind of listening to the way you're talking. That's kind of what it seems like is y'all have a good system with y'all's pen, and or even just being on the outside, y'all are able to look at the other dogs and say, all right, if you're not within this range right here, then you're not gonna cut the cake for
Right.
us.
Right.
Yeah. So old Geronimo was just out there putting in work then.
That's right. Yeah, and it didn't matter. We didn't. Of course, he didn't run him much in the wild after that because too much can happen to him up here in the wild. But
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
wouldn't be nothing in the summer to go out there and turn them an action cat and that kind of dog out there in a cornfield and listen to them run. Because they could run the fire out of something.
No. Now you mentioned
And
a few.
like you just said, if they could outrun Geronimo and them kind of dogs, old cat and them, why they'd eat anybody's feed.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Now I've heard you mention him a few times. Old Slide. What was his story?
Well, Slide, I'd say, is probably one of the best. I call him a professional field trial dog.
Okay.
He wasn't like the Slinger dog and Geronimo and them kind of dogs. Slide, you could go out here on a Friday night in a fox pen, and he had a mouth you could pick, but he wasn't just a dog that you'd say was exceptional about that. But you could take him to a field trial, and I don't care what he had to do. He kind of like, I guess, making a grade point average to play baseball.
Right.
He done whatever he had to do to win a hunt.
I got you.
And I mean, you took him to a field trial and put a number on him, he was going to place. I think I placed him in 33 out of 36 hunts I run him in.
Goodness gracious.
And a 19-time champion.
Oh my gosh.
Yep. But I never carried him nowhere that I was embarrassed. And my daddy died, and I'm trying to think what year that was. But anyway, the All-American was in Manning, South Carolina, and they had like 1,036 dogs down there.
Wow.
And everybody says, you win the hunt at the hunt and all this. Well, you don't. You win them at home. You practice at home, and then.
That's right.
But anyway, I took the dog down there because I had some puppies sold.
Yeah.
And had to bury my dad then, but it was going on during that. And
right.
My wife had told me that she'd go down there with me, and we could just go down there and get the puppies, and then come back for the funeral.
Right.
Of course, you know me and the fox hunting, and I know what my dad wanted me to do.
Right.
So I happened to just throw slide and slip his sister in the truck.
Right.
And I told her, I said, well, we're going to be down there a day. I said, we'll just stay down there and run them dogs a day and then withdraw him and come back home.
Right.
Well, that didn't work. He was high enough up. I had to come back home, but I left that dog down there with a little buddy of mine, and he run the dog, and he ended up placing 7th at the All-American down there, and I wasn't even there.
No kidding.
And to kind of tell you the caliber he was, I left him with him, and we turned around then, and he met me, I don't know if it was a month or 2 months later. He'd call me every day. What do you think I need to do? What do you think I said, just run him. I told him how I wanted him to run him,
right.
What worked good with him, and what to do and all that. And he run him and met me at Gina, Louisiana
right.
for the Masters. And I hadn't seen the dog in 2 months. And I put a number on him down there, and he placed 3rd and won the duel at Gina.
No kidding. Wow.
Yep.
Wow. Well,
but he is one of them that, I don't know, he wasn't a Saturday night special dog. Because like I said, a lot of dogs, even in a field trial, I mean, if you got to where the caliber wasn't that high, yeah, he'd be the high dog first day.
Right.
But if you got in real tough competition, a lot of times he'd just be close to the top 10. And then the second day he'd be in there, and if he is close, then look out the next day. That's the kind of dog he was. Versus Geronimo and the Slinger dog and Action Cat and some of them. They'd outrun you from the first minute to the last minute.
Gotcha. So Slide has that more, I guess, just consistent, just like in every crossing kind of thing.
Well, I've seen him at that particular hunt the first day. He is sitting up pretty good in the Hound of the Year.
Yeah.
And that's another reason I wanted to run him. Some of them boys on the East Coast probably didn't really know me that well or whatever. But anyway, I had a number 7 I got on him somehow. I don't remember how I got that number, but I tricked somebody. But I got that number. And everybody there knew him. And Slide was about 27.5 inches tall, had a big flag tail, and it didn't matter if he was dead last when he come through a pack of 70. That's the dog you're going to remember. That's how pretty he was in the field.
Gotcha.
And I'll never forget it. We was sitting down there at that old fire barrel down there where them old burnt tires and stuff was at. There was about 50 dogs. I mean, there was Mojo and a coyote. And that coyote shot across there, and the dog just go, 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 go. And he was probably, out of the 70, he was probably 65th.
Right.
And he crossed that road, and boy, them 2 boys, I seen that one boy, and I can't even remember his name. He elbowed that other one. He said, number 7. He said, that's old Hoehner's Slide. He said, we got him where we want him, ain't we? And I never said a word. I know Slide. That thing went in there, and they just about went out of hearing, and here they come back, and I heard old Slide just, I thought, yep, you think you got him.
You thought you did.
That big dog, he wasn't 20 feet behind him. I mean, and them 2 boys looked at that number and never said nothing. They looked at one another. They said, that was Slide. But he knew how to pace himself. You know what I mean? A lot of dogs will just bear down and then they ain't got nothing left.
Yep.
That there knew when to throw the speed and when not to. And
That's right.
He wasn't going to try to run you down from behind. He knew how to make a move. And when he did, he got paid for it.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. A lot of people talk about, I want the fastest this, fast and this. And, I'd rather have a dog, and I've said it before on here, I'd rather have a dog that can average, 11 miles an hour, 12 miles an hour, but he don't miss a cut. If that fox makes a cut weird or he makes a turn a different direction, that dog don't miss it. He holds on to it. Then I'd rather have that dog than a dog that averages 15 miles an hour and blows the track every time. It can't go more than 3 hours.
Well, old Slide, like I said, he is 27.5 inches tall, and
that's a big dog.
I actually bought him back off of Ed Bacon after I won the All-American with Superman. I stopped at Mr. Ed's house because we had sold him Hainer's Shiloh.
Okay.
And that's Slide's daddy.
Okay.
And anyway, I talked him out of him and some more of them pups that was mates to him. But old Sonny Churnian, he's a good dog, man. Old Sonny, I think he's from Virginia and lives in Georgia. Sonny's a good dog, man. And I don't know if you've ever talked to him, but he'd be a good to talk to sometime. If you could ever talk to him, he can tell you a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I'm going to have to look at that one.
Very knowledgeable man. But anyway, he was Ed's neighbor down there, and he told Mr. Ed, he said, I don't know why that boy'd want that dog. He said, that thing needs killing. and, when I brought him home, like I said, he wasn't a year old.
Right.
And, man, I'd run him with Superman and some of them that were speedsters.
Yeah.
And I'd run him in this pen of mine. It was big old hills, and rolling pasture and fast. I've seen that poor dog look like he needed to quit, but he wouldn't. I just kept pouring it on him and pouring it on him.
Yep.
And, I'd done that for 2 or 3 months. And I even thought the first month that he was right. I should have killed him. But he was so pretty when you seen him, you just had to like him.
Right.
And I was out there running one day with them I just kept running with them same dogs. And he finally figured it out. One day I heard that son of a gun coming, and he had that thing, and it didn't even look like the same dog. And it was, I never even run the dog in a derby hunt ever in his life. That's how good a dog he was. I just started running him all age when he was 15 months old.
I like that. Just sent him straight to the moon.
Yep. Well, he was just that style of dog. Running didn't hurt him, and I knew he'd be better 3 days than he would be 1.
That's right. That's right. I don't blame you one bit. That's kind of, we joke about it all the time. Me and some of my buddies, I know there's times where derby, running a dog in a derby class is fine. It's acceptable. That's what you need to do with them. But we always joke, you remember who was the derby winner of that hunt? Nope. You don't remember who the derby winner of that hunt was.
Or who got second.
Or who was second. That's right.
About the same as winning the derby, ain't it?
That's it. The derby winner and the second place dog.
I guess you get a little envelope now, so it's a thrill to get second or to win the derby. But
that's right.
Well, that ain't what we grew for. We didn't breed for win the derby. We bred for winning that championship.
Yes, sir. I want to see that CH in front of the name.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely. So you've mentioned Slinger a few times. What was his background? All right, we're going to wrap this one up right here for the week. One thing I want to do real quick before we get into the spotlight presented by Cajun Lights is Mr. Hoehner messaged me after we were done recording, and he said, man, he sure wished he would have mentioned this one in the show, so I wanted to make sure it got its recognition as well. And that is the 5-time champion Hoehner's Little Bit. It's also Hound of the Year and mother of Bold Ruler, who was Hound of the Year, Master Champion and 5-time champion. She was also Dam of the Year. It was one of the best crosses we ever made. Between her and Slinger, Bold Ruler, Hound of the Year, Masters Champion, 5-time champion. Hoehner Little Maria, 3-time champion. Sullivan's Delta Dawn, 3-time champion. Hoehner's Martina, and 1 speed and drive in 3 major hunts, and just not a champion. So I just wanted to make sure that was mentioned. Sorry I didn't have quite the delivery on that one, but just wanted to make sure that was mentioned per Mr. Hoehner himself. So I hope y'all enjoyed that first half. The second half is going to be coming to you next week. So y'all just hold on tight. We'll make sure we get it to you. And we're going to jump right into the spotlight presented by Cajun Lights. All right, let's get right into it. It's going to be a real short one this week. The NC Open was down at Tar River. And it looks like we're going to go through this one pretty quick. We'll start with the Derby class. Let's go with the best mouth was Hawtree's Eagle. That dog was out of Champion Bonds Buckskin Ray and Champion Bonds Isabella from Hawtree Kennels. The classiest hound was Humphrey's Big Mike. That dog's out of Champion Ray's George and Humphrey's Hannah from Bird Milk Kennels. The combination, and was also second place dog GTP, and this was a national GTP hunt, was Jack 'em Up Slick. That dog's out of Rock Spring Blacktop and Country Oaks Venom from Jack 'em Up Kennels. And the winner of the Derby class was Hawtree's Pinto. The dog is out of TSW's Pretty Boy and TSW Roxana from Hawtree Kennels. So congratulations to those guys on y'all's Derby win. Then let's move into the all age for this weekend. The best mouth was Crackerjack's Itsy. That dog's out of P2's Paleface and P2's Pancake from Crackerjack Kennels. The classiest hound was a dog named Major. Dog's out of Patterson's Marine and Cabral's Rachel from Brandon and Taylor. Then your combination and dual champion was Humphrey's Jennifer, and that dog's out of Champion Clark's Moneymaker and Spears Mountain Last Penny from William Humphrey. And the field champion for this week was a dog named Prince. The dog was out of Spears Mountain Sergeant and Blackwater Superfly from Teddy Wilder. So congratulations to everybody this weekend. Guys, don't forget the next round of the Hounds Tales podcast pin series is this weekend at Hollywood. So y'all be sure to tune in. We're going to go live that morning bright and early. Hopefully going to have all the scores done at a good time while everybody's waking up. And maybe y'all are at the field trials. So we'll be done running at 5 o'clock and can't wait to see y'all. So I believe that's going to be it for this episode, guys. Thank y'all so much for listening. I really hope y'all enjoyed it. And like I said, we'll get back to the rest of this episode next week, and we'll finish up this conversation with Mr. Hainer. So I hope y'all enjoyed. And like always, guys, happy hunting.